This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start spreading the news, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
After that introduction, EJ, I always want to do the Mad Dog opening from the old Mike and the Mad Dog show. It just sort of leads itself to that, right? Like, and good afternoon, everybody. How are you today? You know, it just feels like that should come next. But
how are you? We all have to have our own openings, and I'm doing well. The Astros are losing in Game 7 right now, down 4-1 against the Rangers. And I think I speak for America when I say go Rangers.
Oh, absolutely. The only reason to root for the Astros is the pain that it would cause me as a Yankee fan to give me something else to complain about all off season when people say you can't have dynasties in baseball anymore. And you go, well, the Astros are in the World Series every single year for the last decade almost. Like if they can do it, why can't the Yankees? But nobody wants them there, and I don't want them there. The only good thing would be I'd be able to complain about it. And I really, I was talking about this with on my Yankee Dr. Sem Yankee show on Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. on this very same sports network, the Northeast Streaming Sports Network, saying, every week I come on here and we do this show and I do that show and we start spreading the news and all that and say all this, well, this is bad and that's bad. And you know what? I would rather say, hey, EJ, can't believe it again. The Yankees are now in the World Series for the 13th consecutive year. Every single player is a future Hall of Famer. Which player are you most impressed with this time? If we could just talk good stuff every single day, that would be much more fun. Unfortunately, that's not the reality.
Unfortunately, we do not have Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman, Jordan Alvarez, all those guys. But hopefully this is the last we hear them. This is last gasp of the dynasty.
Let's hope so. I don't think it is,
no,
but it might be. You never know, because that's baseball. You know what's interesting? The other day on the Mac and Jack show, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the Yankees in 1976. They got swept in the World Series by the Cincinnati Reds. And if you look at the first few games, they were actually close. They weren't blowouts. Everybody remembers that as the Yankees getting blown out. But the other thing that everybody always remembers is that the Cincinnati Reds were unbeatable. They were the Cincinnati Reds. They were the Big Red Machine. They had Pete Rose and Tony Perez and George Foster and Ken Griffey and Johnny Bench and Dave Concepcion, on and on. But everybody forgets that 76 Reds team, that was it. They never made it back. 77, it was the Dodgers. 78, it was the Dodgers.
Well, I wrote about this.
The Pirates.
I wrote about this about a month ago, or maybe a little longer. Even the Yankees, if you think about the history of the Yankees, most of that history is before 1965 in terms of like winning World Series and having dominant teams and having some of the best players of all time. And that's because Major League Baseball essentially stopped letting teams buy players. They had restrictions on what you could pay players at the draft and all that. There was some draft. The actual draft was introduced a few decades earlier than that, but they didn't really put a limit on the Yankees just buying whoever they want until 1965. And since then, right, we've had the late 70s team, which is into the early 80s, really effective team, but a very, very normal, best team in baseball kind of thing. And then the 90s, and then the 2009 team. It's been a very normal baseball team since 1965, maybe a little bit better than average, but if it wasn't for Derek Jeter winning 4 World Series in 5 years, the Yankees are looking for 40 years like a fairly pedestrian team, like most of these teams we've talked about, right? I mean, the A's or the Reds or some other teams that put together one dominant team in 40 years.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a great point. And I talked about this the other day too, and I don't want to get off topic because we've got some great topics to do tonight, as you know. But I think the difference is if you're a Reds fan, you say, I hope my team's going to be good, and I hope they have a period of time where they're good. That's really what fans of most teams feel like. You know, I on the fringe, I watched the Jets and root for the Jets. And if the Jets ever became really good, I'd get into it at the end of the year and I'd be having fun with it. But when you're a Jets fan, you never go into a season going like, oh, this is like Super Bowl time. Even this year, they got Aaron Rodgers, and you're like, oh, maybe. But when you're a Jets fan, you just know you're going to have your heart broken. But on the other hand, the Yankees have made their image and they sold their fans on this idea that we will always be the best team. And if we're not, at least we're going to try.
I mean, I get that. I also think it's a lie. And it's always been a lie. This is just a baseball team. And the only difference between the Yankees and the Reds is the Yankees have more money.
Right. And I think the
matter.
frustration is they haven't spent it as much as they used to.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I think the Yankees could afford to spend as much as, the Mets or whatever. But if you look around the best teams in baseball, they're not the ones spending the most. It's a very tenuous link. I look at, say, the Rangers right now, and I say some of those guys could be Yankees, and you would expect the Yankees to improve if they had Corey Seager, if they had, Marcus Semien, whatever. But that's kind of been the exception. The Padres were awful. The Mets were awful. The Yankees were awful. The Red Sox were awful. You can go down the list. And I just don't think that there's a way to be that good other than, bringing up a bunch of, young players who are going to, be the center of your team for 15 years.
Right. And that's what they had.
Yeah.
I think the difference, and we've talked about this before. If the Yankees had gone out and gotten a left fielder before last year, and whoever it would have been, Mike Cameron, I mean, he doesn't even play anymore. The other guy, the guy in the Mets, I forget his name. I can't. Conforto. Yeah, Mike Cameron. Where's my head? I think I'm still thinking about the Immaculate Grid.
I think you were thinking Cameron Maben, but yeah.
Yeah, but no, but you were voting for him. But no, it's like if the Yankees had gone out and gotten Conforto, you go, well, not the greatest guy, Mickey Brantley or whatever. Like you say, all right, they're trying to get a left fielder. There's not a whole lot of pickings here, so they're going out and they're doing something. This year, you just felt like they gave up. They gave in, like, we'll just throw some pieces at the wall and something will stick. And nothing stuck. And you felt like they didn't really try. And the result was that they didn't really look good. So it is what it is.
I mean, look, I think we will all be happier baseball fans if we lower expectations a little bit.
But that's not being a Yankee fan. Part of my fun being a Yankee fan was always.
Is it fun though? I've been talking to you about this for a long time, and I think it hurts. I think it's painful.
There's a joy when the Yankees went out and they got Reggie. I mean, that was before I was a fan, but then they get Gossage, and then they get Winfield, and then they get Ricky Henderson, and they
get Cole, and they get Stanton, and they get I don't think it's that different. I think the Yankees' financial advantage is smaller than it used to be, but also back in the day, I mean. You look at some of those Cincinnati Reds games, there was no one in the stands. Even for I remember seeing some footage of like Johnny Bench with like playing in front of 5,000 people. The Yankees, they never really had that problem, at least as much. But I think it's good that baseball's healthy.
Yeah, well, the sport itself seems to be doing great, and it's good.
Well, we'll see. I think financially the sport's in trouble.
Well,
I mean, I don't know if you've been following the regional sports network problem.
Mm-mm.
I mean, Major League Baseball, more than any other teams, have been dependent on the Yes Networks of the world, the Fox Sports Centrals of the world, all of that, to make the money. And they make money, those channels, off of cable fees, right? You're on a cable package, they get $1 per customer, something like that. And then a lot of that gets passed on to the team because the team sells very, very, very expensive cable rights. And a lot of teams locked into like 30-year contracts with some of these places and expected basically that to fund most of the team for a long time. But the problem is that that those cable rights are the people are not subscribing to cable much at all anymore. I think we're about half of the number of households as we were at its peak, and that's going to continue to go down. For instance, I'm going to be giving up my cable subscription pretty soon. We have a YouTube TV subscription. It's going up to $80 a month. We're not crazy about that. And so that's probably going away. And, I think that's going to be increasingly common. And so a lot of regional sports networks are going bankrupt. or trying to get out of their deals with Major League Baseball. So the Diamondbacks, the Padres, a few others, there was a big set of networks that all went bankrupt. The one company, a holding company that owned a bunch of these that went bankrupt. And it's only going to get worse. And baseball's got to figure out some way to replace that revenue. Either everybody buys MLB TV or whatever. That's why we're seeing more games on Apple and Prime and all that. There's been some speculation also that we go and see more games on broadcast TV. So instead of being on the YES network, you'd be on, channel 11 again.
like the old days.
Yeah. Because that business model still works and a lot of people still watch it. The Yankees might be the strongest of these teams in terms of like their regional sports network. I think YES has a great brand. I think they do a good broadcast. I think there's reason to believe that YES can stick around longer. But I, for example, like the Cubs just moved to a random sports network that I've never heard of here in Chicago. I don't know how long that lasts. I think I'm going to be bunny earing to get the Cubs games sometime soon. And, I'm okay with that, but I think the economics of baseball are going to change a lot. And I think the Yankees are probably very well positioned in that. I think we're going to see less parity in terms of budgets in baseball, where a team like the Reds can't run a $200 million payroll, where some of them are right now.
Mm-hmm. And let's hope the Yankees use that advantage to their advantage, and they get all the greatest players, and they go 162-0 next year. That would be fun. Actually, that wouldn't be fun.
Yeah,
there's an old
losses.
you got to get a few. There's an old Twilight Zone episode, and this con man, mafia guy, gangster type, dies, and he then wakes up and he's right where he was. He got shot down in the street or something. I haven't seen this in 30 years. I just remember the general premise, and there's this guide comes up to him and he's like, "Hello," and he's like, "What's the story?" And he's like, "You're in the afterlife." And he's like, "Really?"
Yeah. Oh, well, one of my favorite questions to ask my graduate students in my research methods class is, how many times do I flip a coin and it lands on heads? Do you believe in magic? So at what point do you go, wait a second, there's something amiss here? They all give me a number and it's all way too low, right? It's all like, 5 or 7 or something like that. I'm like, no, like, that's normal. That happens sometimes, 5 heads in a row, but 200 heads in a row, that's not nearly as normal. And it's our way of teaching the binomial. It's my way of kind of teaching the binomial distribution, but that's a different.
That's cool.
Different.
So to finish that episode, he goes to a gambling house and he wins everything, and he bets on the ponies and he always wins, and everything he does turns out right. And then he says to this little, his escort or whatever, and he goes, "I didn't think heaven would be like this." And the guy goes, "Who says you're in heaven?" Yeah. Right? Like if everything goes right, it takes all the fun out of it. And then you'd be like, Yankees 162-0, they won again. We'd get tired of it. So part of it.
Yeah, and then they'd lose in the postseason.
Then we'd be angry. That'd be good. So listen, I posed this question on the blog on Start Spreading the News today. Got a lot of reaction. You have to you have to accept my assumption that everything is equal. All right. The numbers, the years, if you want to figure in tax rates and all that. You're a great free agent. You are a very appealing free agent. A lot of teams are bidding on you. And the Yankees make the exact same bid as, say, the Braves and the Phillies and the Astros. What would compel you to sign, other than the fact that you're a Yankees fan like I am? But my question is really, what would be the draw to go to the Yankees? Because my contention is, I don't think the Yankees have that draw, except the Yankees can say, we have a great, fantastic history. And you go, well, not really the last so many years. So if you were a free agent, would you sign with the Yankees or would you sign with the Braves?
I think that I think the Yankees still have an advantage here. The Braves might be the one team I would say have an advantage over them, just because they have such a great core that's locked up for so long. And, you're going to win some World Series if you're Blake Snell and you want to sign a contract there. But I still think the Yankees have a few things going for them. Number one, it's the biggest stage in the world. It's the biggest stage in baseball, even bigger than some of those teams. I mean, you're playing in front of a full ballpark every night. You're playing in New York. You're on TV more often. You're a bigger name. that is appealing to a lot of people, not to everybody, but to a lot of baseball players. That's appealing. There's more kind of ancillary money available to them in terms of like, being in commercials and all that kind of stuff. But just in general, I think I think there is something big about playing in New York still. I think it is a professional and functional organization. And so you can imagine trying to, right now players might be thinking twice about signing a deal with the Padres or the White Sox or some of those teams that are not very functional. I think Yankee fans are still probably a lot of fun to play in front of. I mean, it's not fun when you're playing poorly, but I think that they are. I think there is something to the Yankee fans being louder or more passionate than a lot of fan bases. I mentioned in the show earlier this year that I went to a Diamondbacks game back in May, and the Diamondbacks were in first place. They were good. They were a fun team. And when we saw them, make the playoffs this year and be really fun, and make the NLCS. And it was like a 1/3 full ballpark and it was quiet as anything, right? Like that's a different playing environment than playing in New York, even late in the season when the Yankees were bad. I mean, they still packed the crowd and it was still exciting. I think the amount of media might be a plus. Some people might like that. Some people might not like that.
Let me ask you this: outside of this, the advantages that the city of New York give you and the Yankee fans themselves, what would compel you to play for the Yankees organization? Is it do they have a great GM? Is it that they always win? Is it that their manager is so bright?
I think that they consistently put a competitive team out there. And again, I think that professionalism is something that's not worth nothing. That doesn't mean that they are here's a good example, the Giants, right? Similar team, big market, big city. I'm sure they can match the Yankees dollar for dollar. They are a smart professional team. They've put like one winning team up in the last 5 or 6 years. They don't have a young core. They don't have. I think they're less desirable than the Yankees, and they're a very professional, normal team. It's not a dysfunctional team like we've heard of some other places. So yeah, I think they have an advantage, but I don't think it's 100% advantage. I can imagine a player, thinking, maybe I want to go to Chicago and play with the Cubs and play at Wrigley Field and maybe, build a team there. Maybe I will go down to Atlanta and, be a part of that dynasty. Maybe I want to go to Philly or whatever, right? Like, I don't think it's a clear cut case, but I still think it's a very desirable location. I think that the Yankees don't need to be the highest paying team to get a free agent.
I sense that the general sentiment of Yankee fans disagrees with you on this one.
Well, they're a pessimistic group.
Yes,
I love you. I love you all.
I'm the leader of this pessimism in this right now.
I think that the history matters to players as well. I think the pinstripes mean something more. Like basically, no other uniform does. I think that seeing all the legends come in for Old Timers Day, seeing people's jerseys retired, I think that all does matter. Again, I don't think it's 100%. I don't think it's worth like tens of millions of dollars. I don't think the Yankees. I don't think the Yankees are. I don't think there's the Yankees are anywhere near to a career ruiner by signing with them. So, for example, the Rockies, when Chris Bryant signed with the Rockies, right? Chris Bryant just kind of doomed himself to being irrelevant forever.
Yeah, well, that's the Rockies. It's not the Braves or the Dodgers or the Astros. It's Phillies. I look at the way the Yankees handled the Rizzo situation. I look at the fact that, their manager just blows bubbles. I look at the fact that they just make excuses all the time. And I say, if I were a professional, I wanted to further my career and I wanted to be the best I can. I want to go to the organization that gives me the best chance to win. I think there was a time when people would say the Yankees are the gold standard in every one of those areas. I don't think they're saying that anymore.
I mean, I don't think the Yankees are going to get beat if they match money. Very often. And frankly, this is also a matter of money, right? The Yankees don't have to match money. They can beat the bid of other teams. But like, I don't know. I can't think of the last free agent that the Yankees made a competitive offer to and they went elsewhere.
You may be right about that, but if you're in high school and
I think kids want to get drafted by the Yankees still.
I don't think so because Yankee draft the Yankee minor leagues doesn't produce great players. It just you sort of go to the Yankee system to be disappointed.
Not great hitter. I mean, we've talked about this. I agree. I think the Yankees farm system has a problem with hitters, but I really do think that there's a prestige there, and I think it's real. And I mean, I think it dies eventually if there's not maintenance of it. But I think while the Jeters and Posadas and Marianas of the world are still around, I think that it's pretty healthy.
And the idea that the Yankees get the free agents that they really go for is, like I was going to say, like,
well, they don't go for him. So
yeah, you're the kid in 10th grade, and there's the really cute senior. You don't ask her out because you know she's going to say no. And the Yankees have passed on more than a few. Freddie Freeman, Bryce Harper.
Oh, that's a different question. I mean, that's a different question, right? But I think at the Yankees offered Bryce Harper the deal he got with the Phillies, I think he'd be a Yankee.
He'd be a Yankee,
easy.
But they haven't gone for those guys. But anyway, let's move on. Before we get to the Japanese pitcher Yamamoto, because I think he's very intriguing, and I think he is going to be a type of player that radically changes what the Yankees look like in 2024. Should they get him? Should they be the appealing team for him as he comes to America? But before we go down that route, we have a great question tomorrow on the site. If you could choose any baseball player, it doesn't even have to be a Yankee, for Hollywood to make a good movie about, who would you pick? Who should be the next great Hollywood biopic about?
You know, it's a really good question. Roberto Clemente, I think, is one that's been missing.
I just read the book by David.
Oh, really?
Maris, like in February, but it was great. Yeah.
Oh, really? I haven't. I'm not aware of it.
Oh, I'll show it to you on the screen in a minute. I'll jump off.
So Clemente comes up as kind of the sequel to Jackie Robinson, right? Like as the hero story with a tragic ending, and I think it's really I don't know what's going on there. I think he's an option.
That's the Philly sports guy. I didn't realize his picture was going to come up when I did that.
I think another really strong option would be some of the Cuban guys.
I was thinking El Duque would be an interesting movie.
And Levon, right? The two of them together.
They had a good 30 for 30 or something about the two of them on
amazing
ESPN.
30 for 30. One of the best 30 for 30s, period. And their escape story, I think, is really incredible. And I think it is worthy of a story. I would love to see a Satchel Paige movie. I think that Satchel Paige as just one of the most interesting figures in baseball history. I'd love to see, I'm thinking now kind of getting out of the hero stories. I'd love to see a Gaylord Perry story.
Oh, that's your favorite book, right? Me and the Spitter?
Incredible book, incredible personality. They basically already did a version of him on Major League. That was fun. But to me, that I would love to see. I'd love to see a follow-up to Moneyball that's with the Rays. No one's really written that book yet, and so it's kind of hard to tell what the story is. But I think there's something potentially there.
EJ, maybe you should write that book.
I wish I had the time to write that book. So there's that. Another option is to go really old and go for something like an Abner Doubleday, or something really at the origins of baseball, which would be interesting. So I think there's a lot of good options out there. That said, I kind of think a fictional story is the way to go. I would love we haven't had a good baseball movie in a while. Underdog team wins, or just one of those. I think I'd enjoy.
Interesting. But my choice was the key word there is good. There's never been a good movie made about Babe Ruth. I'd love to see Hollywood actually get the Babe Ruth story right. Thinking of old guys, I also thought about Christy Mathewson. I think he's always been a fascinating turn of the century guy. One of the good guys who was, when baseball was rough and tumble and dirty and grimy. Mathewson was this college educated guy who smiled, but he was an exceptional pitcher. And then, he gets gas poisoned in World War I, and just a very interesting story about. I
mean, the problem is athletes are kind of boring people.
Yeah.
And so the Jackie Robinson movie was fantastic, but Robinson was not just an athlete, right? He was a political hero and figure in a way that transcends sports. And so that can make a really good movie. And to me, the only other real baseball biopic that I think is worth watching is 61.
That's a great movie. And the way they make those guys look like the guys in real life, it was crazy.
Oh, what's his name who plays Roger Maris?
Barry Pepper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, I mean, to me, that's the only other baseball biopic I can think of that I enjoyed. That's why, I think the real question is like, who's the personality? Who's got the dramatic story? Again, Clemente is the guy who comes to mind, but I don't know if Clemente is interesting other than the fact that he was a really good human being and he died tragically. Right? Like, I don't know what the pressures are on him. I don't know what the story is. That's why I like the idea of the Cubans, some story of Cubans escaping from Cuba, because I think that there's some harrowing details there. And frankly, Oduke and Levon are great personalities. So that's difficult. Another, I guess, thinking about it, The Rookie was a fantastic baseball story.
I told you before, the scene when he calls his wife and he says, can you bring me my sport coat? And the wife says, why? And he goes, seems there's a dress code in the major leagues. I mean, that'll get me every single time. That's me still at 55 dreaming that I could make that phone call, wow. Yeah.
It's a fun movie, and it's a no one, right? It's a baseball story that, could have happened to Lucas Luque, right? I mean, it really, I think it is I think it's one of the better ones of these, and I just forgot about it because it's not a biopic of it's not Babe Ruth, it's not Roger Maris, right? It's random guy,
Jim Morris, right?
Jim Morris, yeah. I had a high school teacher at the time named Jim Morris, which is why I remember that. There's the John Hamm movie a few years ago based on some scout going to India and bringing back 2 players.
Oh, I never saw it.
I'm trying to remember the name of the movie, but one of the players turned out to be pretty good. Like, he played in the minors for a while, and basically was a cricket player. I think he was like 6'8" too, big guy. I'm trying to think of other baseball biopics out there that are worth remembering. But honestly, I think I think the baseball movies are fictional. And
Pride of the Yankees is okay. Showed its age, but it's still a great movie.
Yeah, another tragic ending, right?
Yeah.
I think that's not a bad one. I think there's a dramatic story to be told about the 2001 Yankees.
I don't know. Tragedy. They don't win, and in New York, it's
it is the most dramatic playoffs of my lifetime, at least. Not just for the on-field stuff, but the off-field stuff on top of that.
Right. But to me, there's a great sadness there because for once, I think the whole world was rooting for New York, or a lot of it, and they didn't win. That was...
And they had it. They had Mariano Rivera on the mound, Game 7, ninth inning, right? I mean, and it was just a little bloop single.
So here's a crazy question for you. Alfonso Soriano would have hit the game-winning home run, correct? But the Yankees then blew it.
Yeah, so
as I recall.
Yes.
So let's say he hits, I think I'll give you my answer after I hear your answer. But let's say he hits the game-winning home run that propels the Yankees to the World Series championship in 2001. Does he get traded a couple years later then for A-Rod?
I think that the Yankees are less desperate to trade for A-Rod at that point in time. It could be, I think Soriano was pretty overrated personally. He was such a bad defender. And he got better a little bit when they moved into the outfield in Chicago. But I don't know. I think that I think that's how you get A-Rod, right? I mean, I think that trade might happen either way.
It's interesting because I agree. Matsui wins the World Series MVP, doesn't come back. Wetland wins the World Series MVP, doesn't come back. That's a couple years later. I think you still trade him. Yep.
Yeah, and look, I think that the only difference might be that the 2003 offseason might feel different if the Yankees won the 01 World Series. The Yankees really revamped the team after that. They really got rid of a lot of players from that dynasty year, and they were all getting old, and it made sense, at least to some degree. But that 2003, 2004, really that 2004, 2000 through 2007, 8 team was just a much, much different team. Just different personalities, different types of players built around hitting rather than pitching. Or I guess the 98 team was built on both, but you know what I mean? It's a different environment. And I wonder if that reaction is different in 2001. If they don't go out and get Giambi, if they don't go out and get, I guess Messina was right after that, right? I mean, or no, Messina was around in 01, I think, right? I forget. So I don't know. I don't know if Pettit sticks around longer, if they win another World Series. I don't, I think these are all open questions.
Yeah, great questions too. So let's talk Yamamoto for a minute. There's a couple guys, in Japan and Korea. There's a left-handed relief pitcher named Matsui also, but I just want to focus on Yamamoto because he's a big-time starting pitcher. Assuming he comes to the Yankees, could you just walk through the whole process? Is he a free agent?
So he is posted.
Posting fee.
So he's posted. Him and his club will split the posting fee, but he's essentially a free agent. Is the way to think about it. There'll be a little bit of money that goes back to his club, but it's not like say when Yu Darvish initially came over, and there was a limit to how much the posting fee. Almost all of it went to the club. The bidding was for the post, not for the contract. And it's also not when Ohtani came over because Yamamoto is a little older, and so he can sign a big free agent contract. So he's going to sign a big contract. It's going to be as if he was a free agent. He just turned 25 years old. 25 is the cutoff. The reason why Ohtani couldn't sign a big contract because he was younger. But he is going to be a 25-year-old free agent. He's a starting pitcher. He's the best starting pitcher in Japan right now. Big major league stuff. He throws 95. He's got a classic Japanese splitter that's just been incredible. Really good control. Scouting reports seem to love him. Seems like there's no reason why he wouldn't be the next, in the line of really great Japanese pitchers to come over here. He's definitely a step above guys like Kodai Senga, and some of those. So you're thinking Tanaka, you're thinking Darvish, you're thinking of that group, except he's younger than all of them other than Darvish. So really great, really strong pitcher. Every team club in the league are going to want him. The Yankees are absolutely scouting him. We know this because Brian Cashman made the trip to Japan, which is not. It's not like he went out to Somerset. He flew to Japan to watch him pitch, and he threw a no-hitter, which is pretty great, pretty good performance. And it sounds like the Yankees are going to bid for him, even though he's not a hitter, and they might need a hitter. They have some pitchers.
I think they need a starting pitcher. So here's my rotation in 2024 with and without Yamamoto. Mm-hmm. With Yamamoto, you have Cole, Yamamoto, Rodon becomes your number 3. You have Cortez. I think you need a couple lefties. You got a couple. I'd rather have 3 than 2, but you still have 2. And then you probably have Michael King, who's your 5th starter.
And Schmidt being your depth guy.
Correct. Without Yamamoto, it's Cole. Then you got Rodon as your number 2. Cortez jumps up to number 3. King jumps up to number 4. And the number 5 is Schmidt. And that's a lot of question marks there. I don't mind question marks like Rodon as a 3. My goodness, he doesn't even have to be great. And Cortez is a 4? My goodness.
Well, it also makes it harder to trade some of your depth starting pitchers before the season. I think the Yankees need multiple position players. And so you might have to trade a Drew Thorpe or a Will Warren or a Randy Vasquez, some of the more promising guys. And that's a lot easier if you have a 25-year-old starting pitcher added to your roster. So, yeah, I mean, I think it still makes a lot of sense. If the dollars are limited, I would prefer those dollars go to a left-handed hitter or 4. And I'm a little concerned that this is going to be like last season where they made the Rodon move, they re-signed Judge, and they didn't do much else.
Mm-hmm. No, they have a lot of work to do. But I think the more I think about it, I think he's a key part of this whole thing. I'm going to throw a name at you. Do you want Blake Snell?
No, I don't want any of the American pitchers. He is by far the best pitcher in the market as far as I'm concerned.
Jordan Montgomery?
No.
And if I were Jordan Montgomery, all things being equal, I'd tell the Yankees to go take a flying leap, right? I go fly a kite, like at the end of
I don't want the low ceiling starting pitcher, right? Like I think the Yankees, if they're going to get a starting pitcher, I want someone who's
the
a
best.
top of the rotation guy. And Jordan Montgomery, I don't know how well he ages. Like he doesn't have the stuff that Garrett Cole has, that some of these guys have, and he got a 25-year-old available, right?
I agree.
25-year-old ace is on the market. This is exactly the Bryce Harper situation, where even though Bryce Harper wasn't a great fit for that team right away, he was young. And so he was so young that it made sense to get him on the team and figure it out later. And to me, that's my opinion on Yamamoto. Like the Yankees, there's not a lot of free agents over the next few years. Other than Juan Soto, there's really not like a guy that the Yankees are going to go after until a lot of their money comes off the books. So you got to use the money, or else you're going to run out of places to spend it. You're going to have to go like acquire some other team's bad contract or something just to improve your roster. Or you can pay what I think will be a fairly reasonable cost for a 25-year-old ace.
And then next year, if he's not signed to a long-term deal with a long trade this year, then you get Juan Soto, 26-year-old, big-time lefty batter.
And
all
I think
of a sudden you're back.
And you're back for a long time, and you're younger, and I think that young is good. And right now, if the Yankees aren't going to develop pitchers or players, and frankly, they didn't have to do a great job developing pitchers this season, though, Mike King is essentially a new free starting pitcher. I think that you got to get them from somewhere, and this is your best way to get it.
Yeah, we are lockstep in agreement on that. All right, EJ, about 2 months ago, we started talking about the Immaculate Grid on the show. And we said, well, maybe sometimes we'll do this. So I looked at the Immaculate Grid today. Before we jump into it, how often are you perfect? How often do you nail it?
Rarely. I almost always have one guess where I go like, oh, that guy didn't hit 300. So, so I'm not.
I'm usually like once a week, once every 8 or 9 days, there comes one and it's like, oh, all right, this one I can do. But for the most part, I really struggle with this thing. And so I looked at it today, as I do every day, and I went, you have got to be kidding me, because they added a new category.
Yeah.
And it's called Born Outside the US 50 States and DC.
This is not hard.
This is not hard?
No.
Oh my God. I saw that and my brain exploded. The only one I got was on the, so you want to,
can we bring it up on screen? Let's do it.
You're good at bringing up the picture. Do you want to bring that up?
Yeah. Let me bring this picture up on screen real quick,
so they could see what we're talking about. The pirate one I got, the pirate one was easy. Born outside the USA. So we're also looking for a pirate who's born outside the USA, a St. Louis Cardinal who was born outside the USA, and a Seattle Mariner who was born outside the USA. Usually when the Mariners come up, my brain goes blank anyway. I'm not good at the Mariners. I'm not good at a lot of these expansion clubs, even though the Mariners have been around since 77.
All right, you got my screen?
I don't see it, no.
I see it down here below.
I'll have to maybe a Mac will have to bring it up. Let's see if we can get Mac to bring it up. If not, I'll just have to explain what we're looking at here. And we've got, let's do this. St. Louis Cardinal. Name a St. Louis Cardinal who was born. You say this is easy. Born outside the USA. That's easy.
I mean,
Albert Pujols?
I'll just say, yeah. I mean, Albert Pujols is your first answer. You go Yachty. You could go. I mean, there's a million Dominican players.
Oh, I'm thinking like outside of North America. So yeah, all right. But once I started saying it out loud,
I mean, that's one that they could add. They could add born in X country. That could be a little more difficult.
Oh my God, that'd be all right. So who do you have for Seattle? For Pirates, I picked Bert Blyleven.
Okay, that could work. I was going to say Pedro Alvarez for the Pirates. We can go Blyleven. For the Mariners, I mean, Ichiro is the easy one, right? And there's a decent number of Japanese players that we could point to.
Closer, because you get lower points if you get an obscure thing. Who was
it
Japanese
Iwamura? Was that who I'm thinking of? Hisashi Iwakuma. He was a Mariner.
Sasaki?
Suzuki. Suzuki. You're thinking of.
They had a different
Kurt Suzuki, who's I don't think he ever played with the Mariners.
No, the Mariners had a closer, pitcher who was a closer who came from Japan too.
Well, I mean, Iwakuma is the one I was going to go with.
All right, let's put him in.
Right, probably not all that.
Spell it IW
Hisashi Iwakuma. I got it. 1%. All right.
Put them in mine too. Yep, 1%. Blyleven was 0.8%. Albert Pujols was 22%. Yeah, you know what? It's much easier than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to name Dominican players, right? That's the
Japanese, Korean. Yeah.
To me, they had a couple days ago. They had the played an entire career with one team.
I think
the flaw of that is that a guy who was called up, you just name a reliever who got called up a week ago. And to me, that is not the spirit of the question. I hope they change it to have like a minimum games played requirement or something like that.
No. Because if you only do the one player guy, then
there you go. Well, yes, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I apologize. You do have the encyclopedia on that for the Yankees at least.
Indeed. I put any of those guys in and get them.
You get a very high score. Yeah.
Yes.
300 plus average season. All right. Now we've already put Albert Pujols in.
So the easy one for the Cardinals. There's an easy one.
Right. It's going to be Musial, right? I mean,
you got to go Stan Musial.
Right. And now he's going to be a high rarity score, 13%. Not bad, actually. 13% is not that bad. Now, Pittsburgh, 300 average season. This is a little bit tougher. I don't know if McCutchen did it. I think he did. No,
I wouldn't.
He was a batting title, I think, right? Andrew McCutchen, he had to win a batting title at some point.
Right. But you got to have a career. A 300 average season. Oh, well, Dave Parker.
Sure, Parker. Why not? Right. Nice and easy. Again, this is easy grid. Easy grid. Seattle, 300 plus average season. Now we have Ichiro still available to us. Edgar Martinez. I went with Edgar. Edgar probably has a better rarity score there. 22% said 22% said Edgar Martinez. People are starting to kind of get wise to this. We got to be careful here. We could have gone with some other places. Adrian Beltre had, I think, a 300 plus average season with Seattle once. All right, now we have the pair teams. So we have Atlanta with St. Louis, Pittsburgh, and Seattle. So Atlanta, St. Louis. What do you got?
Yes, I just started this the moment we started. St. Louis Cardinals and the Pirates.
So for Atlanta, St. Louis, did Eric Hinsky play with St. Louis? I think he might have, because I think he won 3 World Series in a row, and one of them was with St. Louis.
I
did not. Remember. Okay, I got that one wrong.
I
failed the test there with Eric Hinsky.
I was going to say I didn't think he did. See, I have to always go back to the 70s. That's really where my strength is. And then you just start thinking of guys, and you're like, oh my goodness, was that guy in the Pirates?
How about Lance Lynn? Did Lance Lynn play with Atlanta ever? I don't think so. I forget where he ended up this season.
This is where it gets hard, right? The Cardinals.
Especially the National League. I got nothing in the National League. Now you have Atlanta, Pittsburgh. I'm trying to think of a good Atlanta Pittsburgh duo. I feel like there's a couple of pitchers that played with both. So that is an option, something we have to consider. And Atlanta, Seattle. I feel like that should be a little bit easier given that we know the American League better. And so I don't know. These are the ones that I always struggle with and why I just got Eric Hinsky wrong right there. But yeah, so I mean, this is bad audio, so I hate to do this on air right here. If anyone's watching, comment and give me some Atlanta players. I think about, some guys who played with a lot of teams with Atlanta. What was his name? The center fielder, Marquise Grissom.
Grissom.
Did Marquise Grissom play with any of these teams? I feel like he might have.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you if he did or not.
Yeah, I'm going to try it with St. Louis because I feel like he might have been there.
I think you're
Marquise Grissom. He is not a St. Louis Cardinal. And another classic one.
What's Vince Coleman. Did Vince Coleman ever play on the Braves? I don't think so.
I don't know. I mean, dude, I thought I only know of him as a Pirate. I mean, as a Pirate. Yeah.
No, he played Vince Coleman.
Well, okay. Well, let me tell you right now. The other. Oh, okay. There's an Atlanta one that I would not have guessed, but which was Robinson Cano played with Seattle and Atlanta. I guess
did he really?
I guess he briefly with Atlanta this year. I don't know.
Robbie Cano. Don't you know? How about
one
that?
One of your old guys, Sid Bream, a Pirate. Atlanta was one. It was 23%.
That's a great one.
That's a tough pull. That's a tough pull, though. Damn. And then Marcelo Zuna for Atlanta. St. Louis. It's probably
Those are your number one
one.
choices. Is that what the number one choices were?
Those were the number one choices were. McCutcheon
Sid
was the number
Reed.
one choice for the Pirates 300 hitter. Ken Griffey Jr. was the number one choice for Seattle 300 hitter. We didn't even think about Griffey or A-Rod or any of that. Yadi Molina, born outside the U.S. for St. Louis. Roberto Clemente for Pirates. I think this morning it said born outside the U.S. and they clarified this afternoon born outside the U.S. 50 states and D.C. So Puerto Rico would count as outside, and then of course Ichiro. So not bad, you know. It looks like only 44% of people got an Atlanta Seattle one. So that was a tough one. That was a real tough one.
Yeah, and you know what? Once we started talking through it, I just saw born outside the U.S. I was thinking North America, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. But I wasn't even thinking Japan.
Oh, they're going to give it to you eventually. You're going to get like born in Venezuela. You're going to get, you're going to get born in Asia. I mean, it's coming.
It's coming. They're making it harder and harder and harder. So EJ, we got probably, I don't know, about 5 minutes to go here. Let's just play a little other game here real fast. Optimistically, are you high on the Yankees getting Yamamoto? Do you what do you think? What do you think?
I think they get him. There's a lot of smoke there. Again, I don't think Brian Cashman gets on a plane if it's not very serious. And now the question is will the Yankees offer him the most money? And
is it closed? There was a time when the bids with Japan were closed. So you just were betting. You were betting.
No, it's not that. It's not. It's just think of it as a free agent system.
It's regular.
His club gets compensation, but it's essentially an open bidding. So you're fine there. So for example, Kodai Senga and the player, I forget who the Red Sox signed, Yoshida. They were just basically free agents. Like they signed. People made offers. They took the offer. So I don't think that the Yankees have the money, right? They have money coming off the books. They're interested clearly. So we don't really have, they knew what their rotation was going to look like when they went to go scout him. And so that I don't think should be a concern. And I think they like him. For all I know, the scouting report, wasn't great, but he pitched a no-hitter. So it's kind of hard for them, at least in person, to object to that. He's a little shorter than a lot of the other Japanese pitchers who came over. So he's 5'10", whereas like Kuroda, I think was 6'1". Darvish, I think is like 6'4". He's a big guy. Ohtani's gigantic, right? So they're, there's a little bit of something going on there. There's not a lot of major league pitchers who are that short, but there's some. And just the pitch mix that Yoshida has, Yamamoto has, is the same pitch mix that has worked for all of these pitchers. Like for whatever it is, for whatever reason, American players just aren't learning the splitter. And so Japanese pitchers can come over and it is a killer pitch. And he's got the control. He's, as far as we know, he's healthy. I don't think there's any reason to believe the Yankees won't put in a really good offer. And the question is like, does he want to play in the West Coast? Right? A lot of Japanese players would prefer to stay in the West Coast because they're a little closer to their home time zone. There's a little bit more more Asian on the West Coast than on the East Coast. But does he want to play for the biggest team in the world? Maybe he doesn't. I suspect he does. I think that there's good reason to believe that the Yankees can make more money off of him than anybody else, which is why they could offer him the biggest bonus. They haven't had a big Japanese player since Tanaka left. But also, I suspect that a lot of these players talk, and I think Tanaka had a good time here. And I think Kuroda had a good time here. And I think Matsui is still around and had a good time here. So I think there's reason to believe that they're among the favorites for him. But who knows? Who knows if, again, the Giants or the Dodgers or whatever are going to offer him a stupid amount of money or whatever. But I'd say if I had to pick a team, I'd say the Yankees.
All right. So let's talk another quick Japanese player real fast. Ohtani. I do not see him playing on the Yankees. I don't think it's even possible. I keep making this argument online, and no one's like, when I make it, then like it becomes radio silence. He's a DH. That's all he is right now. Now maybe he'll pitch again, but he's a DH at least in 2024. The Yankees have a DH. Giancarlo Stanton. He's going to get $32 million. Ohtani's going to get 40. Right? So the Yankees going to invest $72 million, even if it's only for 1 year in a DH? There's no way.
It's hard to defend it on baseball terms. You don't know when he'll pitch again, if he'll stay healthy. This is now his second Tommy John in not that many years. I don't like to bet against Ohtani. As a DH, he's basically the best hitter, not named Aaron Judge, in the world. So,
or Juan Soto. I think Juan Soto's just
Juan Soto, Jordan Alvarez. There's a few there, but like he led the league in on base and slugging. So, he's pretty good. So I think that I don't think he fits on the Yankee roster. I think he's going to be very overpaid. And look, if I was a billionaire owner and money was no object to me, do it. Why not? Right? Like you own the team to have fun. Let's do it. I don't think that's how the Yankees operate. I don't think that's how most teams operate. And I think that there are teams like, say, the Giants that have just a lot more room in their budget where they can afford to make a dumb decision to bring Ohtani in. And I think that's where he's going to end up.
I'm not sure where he's going to end up, but I don't think it'll be with the Yankees. EJ, we're going to end early today. We did a great job, 50 minutes. We did not do well on the Immaculate Grid, but that's why it's the Immaculate Grid. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. I'll be back Saturday morning. EJ and I'll be back again next Monday night at 9. Don't ever miss us, because this is the very best show there is, in addition to the Bronx Beat podcast as well. Thanks for watching the Start Spreading the News show.
I think our producer might not be around, and so
I think
we might be in after action time until.
You know what this is like? You know what this is like? This is like a encore. Like the crowd's going wild. We come out.
Yeah, they're demanding that we come back,
and we're waving to the crowd. All right, I'm just going to say some other quick names, and you tell me if they're going to be Yankees. Blake Snell.
No.
Okay.
I don't think any other free agent starting pitcher other than Yamamoto will be a Yankee. I think if they can't get him, I think they go with their current group.
You don't even think they signed Jordan Montgomery?
No, I don't think he fits really the team.
I don't think they do either.
I mean, look, the Yankees, the rotation is Yamamoto is nice and he's available and he's 25 years old, so go for it. But other than that, like, I think the Yankees kind of have the rotation they got to ride with. Rodon needs to get better. Nestor Cortez needs to get healthy. But even then, you got King, you got Schmidt. Like, I think it's a solid enough group that it's not high in my concern. Like if I'm spending money on full priced older players, like we need like 3 hitters at least. I could imagine them signing like a Hyunjin Ryu or something like that, an older veteran kind of depth kind of guy.
Well, they sort of did that with Kuroda, right? They got him at the end of his career as a solid pitcher to anchor the rotation, and he did great. I mean, for what
I agree. Yeah, I think that's the kind of player I could imagine them signing. Jay Happ, that kind of guy. But I don't think they sign a full price ace, Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon type. Other than the 25-year-old young.
And I don't think there is an American ace. I don't think Blake Snell's an ace. And I'm the guy who never wanted to get rid of Jordan Montgomery. Well, I wouldn't have minded if they traded him in a smart trade, I guess. But I thought that trade was a disaster. And I'm the guy who's argued about it ever since. But no, you did that. Like, no, you don't fix a mistake by then getting the guy a year and a half later. So I wouldn't bring him back either. So
I mean, I there are some pretty good. Blake Snell's a pretty good pitcher, but there's some other pitchers in the market.
Fly guy, you need
Aaron Nola's on the market, so there are guys out there, and I could imagine a world where like someone loses the game of musical chairs, and like Aaron Nola doesn't have a job in February. I can imagine the Yankees coming in and being like, "We'll pay you, we'll give you a 2-year deal, or a deal with a player option or something," and so. Yeah, I think there's a world where they could take that opportunity, but I don't think they're signing someone else to a $200 million contract. Their staff's a little old. I think one kind of hidden problem with Mike King is that he's not around for much longer. He's only got, I think, 2 more years left on his contract. And so, you convert him to a starter, he becomes a really good starter for you, and then you have to retain him via free agency or let him go. And it's different. It feels like he's young, but he's not. Like, he's been around for a while now, and he's gone through, that elbow injury and a lot. I think he's 28 years old. I mean, he's not a young guy. Schmidt's similar, right? Schmidt's 27, I think. And I I don't think he has a lot of service time. But he's not young, right? He doesn't have that going for him. Yamamoto is younger than either of those guys and more accomplished and better. Cortez is, I think he's also got a lot like more service time than you'd think. And, he's almost 30. And so I don't think you can add another 31-year-old to this roster without really paying for it long term. But if you add a 25-year-old to the roster, well, then he'll be 30 when everyone else's contracts are expiring.
That is correct. I 100% agree.
Yeah. I wonder if they bring in a reliever.
They're going to have to get some relievers because their bullpen's going to be shallow right now.
I mean, the problem is Loaizaga. No faith in Loaizaga. Canely, not a lot of faith in Canely by the end of last season. Mike King is now going to be plan A in the rotation. So you got guys like Efros,
coming
Clay
off
Holmes,
an injury.
I think Clay Holmes has still been pretty good. I think I'm pretty confident in him as your closer at this point. Ian Hamilton, I was pretty happy with last year, so I think there's something going on there. But I think you're still a little short. The Yankees, I'm sure, can find another Ian Hamilton fairly consistently. I'm pretty confident in that. But you're kind of counting on Loaizaga, Efros, Canely to bounce back if you really.
Clay Holmes is only signed through this year. He's a free agent.
I guess 2 years.
Oh, arbitration eligible. I see. Free agent after 20.
Yeah. Let me check. If you look at that bullpen right now, right? So Trevino's gone. He's out. He's going to be non-tendered. Loaizaga only has 1 more year left, but I think Loaizaga is really bad right now. And I was saying this in the middle. I was really concerned about his strikeout rate, but he kept getting batters out for after he got back from injury for a while, and it all just fell apart in September.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what happens when you strike out 2 batters per 9 or whatever it was. I mean, you just can't sustain that. That's impossible, especially for a relief pitcher. You're going to get runs in bunches. So this is the thing I'm least concerned about, because you can go and get a guy in a $5 million contract, and you could probably find someone who could pitch, and you'll be fine there. And the Yankees will convert a starter in the minors to the bullpen, and they'll look like Ian Hamilton. They'll bring in a non-roster invitee, and they'll look like Ian Hamilton. Like they can do this.
They've done it. That's the one thing they've been able to do consistently year in and year out without a problem.
I think a little bit of stability wouldn't suck. One guy who, again, Canely was supposed to be that guy this year. One guy who can give you, solid setup man kind of stuff. I can, the name doesn't really, come to me right away, but there's a million guys like that in the league, and I'm sure they could trade for them. They could sign them. There are options out there. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
All right, EJ, we're going to try this again. We're at the top of the hour, and I think our second encore, or this is our first encore. That'll be it. Thank you for watching the Start Spread of the News Show, and let's see if the show ends here.